This is episode 77. And today we're talking about the rapper Lil Wayne. He recently sold the masters to his music company, to Universal. And we're going to talk about whether that was a good idea or not. There are pros and cons to it. So understand the pros and cons. We're talking about that in this video. What's up, guys? Thank you for tuning in. Today we're talking about music law, celebrities in the news, and also some tax law. We're going to talk about some pretty cool things. Lil Wayne made the news. He was recently sued by a former manager, and within the complaint, it talked about how Lil Wayne sold the masters to his music company, Young Money Records and Young Money Entertainment. He sold it for $100 million, allegedly. We don't really know, but that's what we believe it's sold for. And you also saw people had very strong opinions about it. Most people were against it. Most people were chastising Lil Wayne. Why would you sell your music royalties? In particular, because you often hear about artists getting cheated out of deals and things like that, and they're telling you need to own your masters, own your music masters. You own your music masters, you get a bigger cut of the pie. You get more money. And so let's talk about what are masters. Masters, music masters. Music masters are short for master recordings, which are the actual original recordings. So, for example, if you are streaming a song, or if you're like buying the song, or even if you're like hearing the song on TV or a movie, you are hearing that because the record company, typically record company, or the musician, but typically more than likely it's the record company, they gave a license to that company to use that song, and in exchange for that license, they'll get royalties back, and then they split the pie up. They'll get money back, and they split the pie up between the company and the artist. So when you sign to a record label, they pretty much control what they do with your masters. They own your masters. I mean, you can have more likely to sign an exclusive recording agreement. Basically, how you exclusively can record music with that record company. So, and then they can license that to whoever they want to. They can license that to whoever they want to, and in exchange they'll get money back, and they'll give you a piece of it. They'll give you royalties of it. So Lil Wayne had Young Money Records, Young Money Entertainment, and he signed some of the biggest artists in the world. In particular, Drake, the rapper, and Nicki Minaj, the artist. She does both. She sings and raps. But in essence, he sold it for roughly $100 million. And the question you have to ask is, was that a good thing or a bad thing? I'm of the opinion it's a good thing. I mean, that's just my opinion. From Lil Wayne's vantage point. That is my opinion. And I'm going to tell you why. Before I say that. And in the process of buying this, he sold it to Universal Music Group. And from Universal's vantage point, there probably was some financial due diligence, as well as some legal due diligence. I talk about these types of due diligence a lot. Financial due diligence, what are the numbers, what are the books? I mean, I'm of the opinion that boxing and music are probably some of the most shadiest businesses out there. They're constant like financial tricks and dishonesty in both music and boxing. So when you're going to buy some things such as those masters, you want to do your financial due diligence. Get every number accounted, every number audited, every number has to be accounted for, and many other things. Also, legal due diligence. The company Young Money, does Young Money actually exist? Is it a real company? What else? Do you own the trademarks? Whatever. I mean, they're not necessarily purchasing the intellectual property. They're purchasing the masters. So there probably wasn't some type of like asset purchase agreement, because they're purchasing that music, purchasing those recordings, and that is considered an asset on paper, because that can actually make you money every single year. So that's from that vantage point, from a legal standpoint. But as I mentioned earlier, you often saw people, had very strong opinions. A lot of people were against it. I'm of the opinion that it may have been a good thing he sold it, from Lil Wayne's vantage point. I'm speaking from Lil Wayne's vantage point. it may have been a good thing he sold the masters, because they're going to give him $100 million. Oftentimes you hear people say, well, you could have passed that on to his descendants, his kids and his grandkids, and his kids could have ate off of that. Very true. I mean, if he kept those masters in the family, he probably could put the masters into some type of like trust or something, and his descendants could have been the beneficiaries of it, or whatever he wanted to do, whatever type of legal device he wanted to create. It's very true. But the idea is that on the counterpoint, money now is always better than money later. If I can get $100 million now, I don't want to wait to X amount of years to get $100 million. Why? Because you can take that $100 million and you can invest it. So instead of waiting, theoretically, instead of waiting 5 years to get $100 million, 20, 20, 20, up to 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, 5 years to get your $100 million, you can get $100 million now and invest that $100 million. So in 5 years later, you'll have $100 million plus the amount of money that you made off investing it. So money now is always better than money later, because the money now you can be investing in it and be able to get more than if you had to wait for it. So that's that standpoint from a financial standpoint. But also we have to talk about tax law. When you're getting royalties, companies are getting royalties, individuals are getting royalties, that is considered ordinary income. And ordinary income is taxed higher than than other types of income. For example, Lil Wayne sold the masters. He probably held those for more than a year. Some of Drake's and Nicki Minaj's best albums have been recorded prior to that year. So that would be considered capital gains, and in particular long-term capital gains. If you hold it for longer than a year, it's considered long-term capital gains, and that's taxed lower. That's some of the lowest tax rates that exist, typically roughly around 21%, versus ordinary income, which is going to be taxed very high. Ordinary income can be taxed very high. It can be taxed up to 37%. So he's paying 37% on those royalties every time he get a check from those royalties or from that music that he owns, versus roughly 20%. That's a fundamental difference. I mean, so say for example, $100 million. Let's just keep it very simple. $100 million, tax at long-term capital gains, 20%. That's $80 million he has in his hand. Versus if you get taxed at $100 million at 37%, let's just keep it simple. All things equal, adding up to roughly 37%. I mean, that's fundamental difference. And that's what is that? That is $63 million. $63 million versus $80 million. Take the $80 million and invest that money. One, because you actually have more due to the tax law aspects of the tax, where they allow the long-term capital gains. That actual regulation that the Internal Revenue Code allows, versus $63 million. And maybe dealing with millions, but that's a $17 million difference that he has by just selling it, because he's taking advantage of the tax code, which I'm sure, hopefully he has some good people around him. If he doesn't, contact me. I mean, I can advise him on some things such as that. So now he has roughly $80 million because he sold it, and he has long-term capital gains. $100 million minus the 20% that he gave to the government. All things equal, all things equal. He has $80 million left. Now he can invest that. And let's say, for example, he wants to invest that into something simple. So he can probably find 5% return on his investment. Let's say, for example, he does that. He can take that $80 million, put it into some type of financial instrument, a variety of financial instruments, whatever, and he accumulates 5% interest on his money every single year. That is roughly $4 million a year. I think we need to make sure we understand that. He has the $80 million. He takes that $80 million and put it into some type of investment vehicle. 5% interest on your money is very common. You can find that on your money. It'd be very safe investments. You can have a variety of financial instruments and maybe find some way to safely get 5% return on your investment. That equals to $4 million a year that he will make for the foreseeable future, and he doesn't even have to touch the $80 million. So the $80 million stays there in his pot. He's living off the interest, not touching the principal. He's living off the interest. $4 million a year. Now he doesn't have to rap. He can rap because he wants to, not because he has to. And his kids will be taken care of as well, because he can live off the $4 million. Doesn't have to touch the 80 million and can pass that down, put that into a family office. I need to do a video on family offices, but the idea is that it's an investment for the family. I mean, it gets more complicated than that, but he can put it into a trust. He can put it in a trust fund. He can do many things with that, versus him waiting on that money every single time, every single royalty distribution. He doesn't know if Nicki Minaj and Drake will have popular music 30, 40 years from now. I mean, they music may not be having to making the same type of money. So better to sell it now and get this $80 million. You know, $80 million is going to be there. You can live off the interest and never have to lift a finger for the rest of your entire life. I mean, that's nothing short of incredible. I mean, and you have to realize that Lil Wayne, he comes from poverty. I mean, in respect. I mean, you listen to the story of Lil Wayne. I mean, he comes from one of the most violent ghettos, violent neighborhoods in New Orleans. So the idea is that you didn't even go to college for music. You didn't go to school for business administration or some business type. He learned all this stuff on the job. Using his musical gifts, using his musical talents, he built an entire music company, multi-million-dollar music company. So selling it, you have nothing to be ashamed of. That is the key. I mean, when they talk about business, it's that you must have an exit strategy. One of his exit strategies was selling the money. I mean, I'm not downplaying the idea of owning your masters. I'm not downplaying that. But the idea is that you can get $100 million for something you thought of in your head. I mean, as a lawyer, a big part of a lawyer's job is to be a counselor, like counsel you. I wouldn't tell them what to do, but I would say, Dre, you want to think long. I mean, I would say, Lil Wayne, you want to think long and hard about this. They about to give you $100 million for something you thought off the top of your head. $100 million, man, you might want to think long and hard before you say no. And he didn't say no. He said yes. He's like, is this what you want? And go ahead. I can create more of this. You know, I mean, but that's the essence of it, you know. And probably how Universal came up with that $100 million number. This is one of the ways you can value businesses, value assets. I typically did about multiple. Let's say, but music has some of the highest multiples in any type of industry. Oftentimes you'll see a person with a multiple of 3 to 6. For example, if the business is making $100,000 in profit, they give it like a 5 multiple, and then they'll be able to sell the business for $500,000. That's typically based on the industry. That's one way you can value businesses. But music, they have multiples from 10 up to multiples of 20, if not higher. So for him to be able to have $100 million, let's give it a simple 10 multiple. He probably was making $10 million a year off those royalties. Maybe making $5 million, and they gave it a 20 multiple. That's how you got to the 100 million. Or they're making $10 million a year. 10 multiple, that's how they got to $100 million. And as I said earlier, it's always better to have money now versus money later, because if you wait X amount of years, if let's say for example you making $10 million and they gave it a $10 million, they gave it a 10 multiple. He's waiting 10 years to get to 100 million, which may not happen because streaming, music listening, everything changes over time. That's what I'm trying to say. But the point is, better have money, having $100 million now, because you can invest it, and within 10 years, instead of waiting 10 years to get that $100 million, you have 10 years, you have 100 million plus 10 years of interest you've been earning. So, and it's also important to know that it's also going to help Lil Wayne, the artist, be able to make more money, because Universal just bought this music for $100 million. They're going to do their best to promote that music. They're going to do their best to try to put it on all the different platforms, whether it's streaming and any future platforms, whether it's gaming, whether it's games, whether it's, I don't even know, AR, virtual reality, whatever type of technology comes out, they're gonna try to make sure their best. They're gonna try their best to make certain that they can get their money back. They just paid $100 million for some music. So my point is that these artists, Lil Wayne's music will be more prevalent, which will help Lil Wayne maybe get more touring business, maybe get more merchandising business, and many other things is that. So the idea is that him selling it doesn't mean he won't be able to make any more money off music or that type of music. He still should be able to perform it. He still should be able to make money touring. He still be maybe even more popular, because Universal Music Group is an actual institution. They have music companies. They have data. They have enormous amounts of data. They can use that data to predict trends and take advantage of trends and things such as that. So selling to someone who actually knows what they're doing, it can be very advantageous and very, very beneficial for not only Lil Wayne but also those other artists, music masters that he sold. And also, if you are Drake and Nicki Minaj, if they're upset about it, they can go and buy it. You know, this is Universal Group is a company. It's a for-profit business. So the right terms, when it comes to the company, I mean, they have the right price, they can get the masters back. So that's that aspect of it. That's what I had to think about that, and that's pretty much all I have. We talked about a lot in this video. Talked about a lot. I mean, music is a growing business. I mean, this world's getting global, and it is global, but it's globalizing more and more and more. So individuals interested in music, if you have that musical gift, or if you've been studying music, I definitely advocate individuals to get into music. Why not? If you believe you have that gift, get into it. But there's also plenty of room for individuals who are not the artists. You can be a music executive. Lil Wayne was a music executive. At one point, artists couldn't afford really anything. So he was probably paying for studio time, probably gave him money up front, and advance money up front. And then with that, he was able to own the masters, which is standard across most record labels. It's starting to change a little bit, but you can do that. I mean, individuals who want to start a music company, most record companies are LLCs. I mean, you start your LLC and start signing artists, exclusive recording agreement, publishing agreements. I mean, all these different types of things you can do when it comes to music. But that's pretty much all I have. We talked about how to value a business. We talked about maybe the asset purchase agreement. We talked about different contracts. We talked about legal due diligence, financial due diligence. We talked about a lot in this video. And also the idea is that from my lawyer counselor hat on, counseling Lil Wayne, maybe whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. I mean, my personal opinion is a good idea. Get this $100 million. $100 million for something you thought off the top of your head, man, you want to think long and hard before you turn this money away. But that's my opinion. And reasonable minds can differ. But that's all I pretty much have. And I hope y'all enjoyed this video. And we're one step closer to 1,000 episodes. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.